Create a shelter statement. I need to keep a place for a year, even if it is an extended stay at a motel. Sometimes it is better to stay at a motel than even to stay with family and friends. When I was going through my situation with homelessness or whatever, and I had to stay with family and friends, it was much more toxic living with them than staying at a motel. So the motel was much more ideal. It was my area, my place in terms of just the immediate environment. I didn't own the motel, of course, but it was mine. And so I think everyone really needs to create a shelter statement. I think when people are graduating from high school and they didn't have any kind of plan, transition plan into something, and now they're kind of floating in the wind, they forget that they are entering adulthood. They don't have any consciousness of entering adulthood. And as long as you're staying in a parent's house, you never really have a true consciousness of adulthood. But when you start thinking about yourself in terms of an adult, not just by age, not just because you turned 18 or you're 21. You are 21 years old living in somebody else's house. That's somebody else's house. So that person can ask you to leave. You stop being on a parent's lease after a certain time. They could choose not to add you to the lease when they renew. So that means if you're not on the lease anymore as an 18-year-old, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old person, individual, then that means you are homeless. Just because that used to be your room and just because you're still staying in that room doesn't mean you're not homeless. At any time, that parent can ask you to leave. So that means you need to create a shelter statement. You need to sit down with your parents, like in this case with a high school. If a high school student is listening to this, you need to sit down with your parents, tell them what your plan is. Okay, I didn't get into college. I'm going to go and get this job. Can you work with me for the first 2 to 3 years while I give you some rent, and then I save some money? Then I either get into college, community college, take some more class. I mean, take classes, and then by a certain age, I think I can leave somewhere around 22, 23, 24, 25, somewhere around there, right? And so if you give people a plan, people know how to work with a plan, basic, more than you saying, well, I don't know what I want to do. Nobody wants to work with that because you don't have any clue about anything. You know you need to get a job, so go get the job. You know that you need to take classes, so go take classes. But people will be more inclined to help to work with you. So moving from the high school context to just you coming out of prison as an adult now, you're still technically age wise an adult, but you still may be a child in your mindset, a high school student in your mindset. So then you need to get somewhere and sit down. What our big mamas and nanas and mothers and fathers used to say all the time from the baby boomer generation: get somewhere and sit down. Don't move with a woman. It's only going to complicate the situation even more, because then the woman can threaten to kick you out. The woman can threaten to call your parole officer or probation officer. The woman can create more toxic situations for you than even being in prison, because now you're out and free. And people, when they're dealing with you from a vulnerable standpoint, they know that you are vulnerable. They seem to pick and prod at you and provoke you more. It's like they kind of want you to go back to prison, right? They like the visual of you being handcuffed and having to be placed in the cop car, cruiser, and then going to jail, being fingerprinted, and things like that. And then they visit you in court and say, "Oh, I love you, baby. I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be. I'm your be for you. I'm going to be with you when you get out." It's like they're setting you up. That's why it's better that you just keep your own place. And even if you have to move into a motel, and usually the extended stays will have a set rate per month. If you can find something that will give you a set rate per month, because it's going to include the water, the cable, the electricity, the air conditioning, so you won't have to pay all those extra bills, the phone, right? And so if you look at that as an option versus going to go live with a woman. If you have the option to stay at a what is it, halfway house, and they let you stay there for 6, 7, 8 months, just before you make a transition and you just go get a job and everything, go then do that. But if it gets to a point where the halfway house can be dangerous because not everyone is getting a job, some folks may be pursuing drugs, things like that. If it gets a little dangerous like that, then yeah, maybe you need to go on ahead. But the motel actually is a better bet. All right, so now that you've gotten to the end, this is you can visit, subscribe, and follow. My website is reginawhitefavors.com. Then you can visit my YouTube channel, youtube.com forward slash at Regina White Favors. And then I have an author store, reginawhitefavorsauthor.com. I also have other types of websites as well. So thank you very much for listening.